Okay, so let's look at some ways of making praise really count, making it super effective for you and really effective for the students too. First thing I'm going to say is that praise needs to be genuine. Okay, real praise comes from the heart and it reaches the heart. Flattery comes from the teeth and it really doesn't hit the spot. Kids are very quick to spot someone who is just trying to manipulate them with positive comments. If you really can't think of anything really positive to say, you are actually better saying nothing at all. If you want the transformations to take place rapidly, if you want to be able to really succeed with these kids in a short space of time, you've got to make this praise really count. It's got to be genuine, it's got to be sincere. And that means you've got to be hyper vigilant to spot those what might be very, very small positive improvements that they make, steps in the right direction. They're the things that we need to jump on. You've got to mark those moments, because if you don't catch them being good and really reinforce it positively with genuine, sincere praise, there's actually not so much chance of them repeating that good behaviour. If you want to change behaviour, we've got to reward the good behaviour with genuine, sincere praise. I'm going to come on to rewards later on, okay, so this is just praise. Second is one-to-one. Now, some kids just cannot accept public praise. They don't want to be put on a pedestal in front of everyone. They don't want to have their work put on display or shown in front of everyone. They don't want the attention or the spotlight on them. We've said that some kids, you praise them and they start ripping their work up. It may be an esteem issue. And it may just be they just don't actually like being praised in front of people. And that's fine. One-to-one praise works much better anyway. You can convey such a lot more emotion through a one-to-one setting than publicly. I would advocate one-to-one every time. Catch them at the beginning of the lesson before they go into class, so everyone else is going in and sitting down. You just catch them at the door, or you catch them at the end of the lesson just for 20-30 seconds. It doesn't matter. Or it can be actually in the lesson time and get them out of earshot of the rest of the students. Now, in that one-to-one setting, you've got a chance to really connect with them. Eye contact is a massive contributory factor as to whether this praise message is going to go straight to the heart or not, if you're going to really connect with them. And also a hand on the shoulder. You can convey such a lot of emotion through a hand on the shoulder, and you can't do that in a public setting. One-to-one is much better. Obviously, you've got to know your kids, and you don't put yourself in any sort of compromising position, but one-to-one praise, in my book, wins every time. Third, kind of goes without saying, but it's so often overlooked, this one. Use their name. Your name is the sweetest sound you can hear. We always respond better to people who actually call us by our first names. Get it wrong and we're not that positive. Ignore it completely and don't use the name. It doesn't get our attention quite as quick, so use their name. Fourth, we want to praise effort rather than achievement. Just to give you an analogy, if you've got a friend who's trying to lose weight, you don't wait until they've reached their target weight before you start giving them compliments. You give them encouragement along the way. You praise them as the weight's dropping off. And it's the same with kids. For some kids, the end goal is too far away. It's too difficult for them to stay on the tracks right to this finished goal, to complete the set amount of work without some form of encouragement or compliment along the way. Rather than wait until they're finished at the end, make sure you're complimenting them on the way. You're really putting in a lot of effort on this. You're really trying hard. It's great to see you putting in so much effort. Those sorts of comments just keep them going. And we'll look at more in a little while, specific strategies and specific phrasings you can use. Fifth, something to avoid. Avoid personal judgments. Some kids, whether it's an esteem issue or whatever it is, some kids don't respond positively to a personal statement. And this, as we mentioned earlier, some kids don't respond to a teacher they don't respect. With the added influence of peer pressure, that can be an even bigger problem. So if you're a teacher that they don't respect, giving a personal judgment such as, I think you've done brilliantly here, is not going to work for you. But if instead you make a praise of what they've done, you've done a brilliant job there, you've created something really good, you've done this, you've done that. If it's not a personal judgment, it's a lot easier for them to accept. Another one to avoid is over-the-top praise for routine achievements. Another analogy for you, if you're going out for a meal with your spouse, you don't praise them every time they use the knife and fork properly. Hey, well done, darling, you got your knife and fork right. That kind of praising is just going to really grate on them, because that's a skill they've already learned how to do. And if you go over the top, wow, well done, you've done so good with that, and it's something that really is quite a small step for them and it's quite insignificant, it's going to rub them up the wrong way. So watch out for over the top praise. And finally, But probably most importantly, you need to make the praise descriptive. If you really want this to count, I've said those throwaway comments like, well done, fantastic, brilliant, they just don't hit the spot, they don't work. So the way to get around that is to make sure that you're telling the student exactly what they've done and exactly how that is beneficial to them. Hey Johnny, it's great to see you working so hard today. You brought a pen, you got started without me asking you to, your diagram's really neat, the work you've done is excellent, that's fantastic, thank you. Now that's much better than when Johnny comes in with his pen, just either ignoring him or saying, well done Johnny, or excellent. Let's get it right to the heart. Tell them exactly what they've done, and tell them the effects that's had, the benefits to them. Make it as descriptive as you can. You'll see in the resources area that we've got some extra phrasing, some examples of positive praise that you can use, and a couple of exercises that you can do as well. But let's move on. Let's look at the strategies that you can use in terms of verbal praise. First one is proximity praise. Now you've probably heard of the ripple effect. That's where you're praising students who are doing it right in the classroom, and you're in the hope that your positive attention that you're giving to the ones who are doing it right is going to spread to those who perhaps aren't behaving appropriately or not working as well as they should be. So you're heaping a load of attention on those that are doing it right in the hope that that's going to spread the ripple effect to those who aren't. Hopefully they'll want some positive attention too. Now one way you can make that a little bit more effective is something called windscreen wiper praise, which was suggested to us on one of our courses. So where you've got one student who is really not performing very well, and he's flanked on either side by his two friends. And you're giving all your attention to the two friends. You're having conversations with them, you're congratulating them and complimenting them and encouraging them for the work that they're doing. And little Johnny's sitting in the middle and he's hearing his two friends getting all these positive comments. And what we hope is that with his head going backwards and forwards like a windscreen wiper, he's going to see that actually doing the right thing, you actually get a lot of attention. So I'm going to try that as well. That's proximity praise. We've got indirect praise. And this would be said just out of earshot of the student, just within earshot of the student to another member of staff. Have you noticed how Johnny's really turned his behaviour around? He's really been doing well today, Mr. Smith. And either Johnny or one of Johnny's friends can just hear that. And that's going to get back to Johnny if it's one of his friends, or he's going to hear it. It's really nice to have people saying positive things about you. And if it's not direct, all those disadvantages of direct praise, all those problems of praise, we've eliminated those, because we're not actually saying it to the student. They're just hearing it secondhand, if you like. Indirect too, this is when we direct the praise at the other students, and it will get back to the target student. So, for instance, we may say, just go and have a look at Johnny's work because Johnny's done this really, really well. And again, we wouldn't really be making a meal of that. We'd be saying it quite quietly, but we know that Johnny can hear, or one of his friends can hear. Johnny's actually got a really good example of this. If you want to go over and see it, it's really, really good. It's going to feed back to Johnny. Number 4, we've got presupposing praise, and this is a fantastic strategy that was given to me by a friend of mine who was working in a school on supply. She was a substitute teacher, and she was working with a really tough group of Year 10 students, and she was dreading it because she had them for the week, and she knew that the next lesson was going to be PE, boys PE. She was going to have to cover it the next day, and she'd been telling me that the previous 2 days had just been an absolute living nightmare with this group. There's one kid in particular seemed to just have it in for her and was just you know, really, really belligerent, really horrible to her. And she was just dreading it. She really didn't want to go into class with them. Anyway, I was eager to find out what had happened, and she told me the next night what had happened when she went in. She said it was absolutely brilliant. She said, you should have seen the transformation. So I'm like, wow, what happened? What did you do? She said, well, it's boys PE and it was basketball. I know nothing about basketball, but I thought I'm going to have to change tack with this kid. So she pulled him to one side, not literally, but she caught him just before they went in, and she said, listen, I know I don't know you very well, but I have seen you playing football on the yard, and I just think you're going to be absolutely fantastic at basketball. So I'm looking forward to seeing how you perform on the court. I think you're going to be excellent. You've got really good balance. You're such a fast runner. You're going to be really good at this. And she said, when that game started, as soon as it started, that kid was just playing like a demon. He was just trying his hardest, running around the court, trying to get the ball, and every now and again, he would look over to her to see if she'd noticed the effort that he was putting in. That kid wanted attention. And presupposing praise is one way of giving that. Number 5 is actually using a question to praise a student. We've said that there are problems with some students accepting direct praise or public praise, and some students are reluctant to accept praise from certain members of staff. They maybe don't respect them, and this is one way around that. Rather than saying directly, you've done really well, we ask them a question that suggests they've done really well. So how did you manage that? How did you get it from there to there? What was the worst bit? What was the hardest bit for you to get through that? Because that's amazing what you've done there. What was the bit that gave you the biggest feeling of satisfaction? Those questions really convey the fact that we've noticed they've done something well, but we're not directly saying it, so we don't have those disadvantages we had earlier. Number 6 is to hide the praise. And this can be given as class-wide praise. It's very effective, actually, to give class-wide praise, but then just acknowledge privately those who have actually done it right. So the way we might be saying this is we're trying to get all students to use a pencil to draw diagrams in science, for example. And little Johnny today has done it. He's actually drawn his diagram in pencil, and he's one of the few that have done it. But rather than saying, hey Johnny, well done, because I know that Johnny doesn't like public praise, I'm just going to say, everyone, if you're using pencil to do your diagrams, that is absolutely fantastic. I know that 1 or 2 of you are using pencil to draw your diagrams, and I'm really, really impressed that you've done that. That's how we need it done correctly in science, so well done those of you who have done that. Now, Johnny's already heard that. He knows that he's one of the few, and you might just nod at Johnny or give him a thumbs up privately so that other students aren't aware of that. And finally, we've got number 7, keep it simple. And this really kind of follows on from what we've just said about private acknowledgement and hand gestures, that kind of thing. When I was playing rugby at school, we had an amazing rugby coach, an amazing PE teacher. He was just fantastic. And we were just filled with admiration and adoration for this guy, because he took us as a group of students and turned us into an amazing rugby team, a formidable force on the pitch. And he didn't really have to say anything to make us feel good. If you just got a nod from him or a thumbs up, you knew that you were on the right track, and that counted for such a lot. So obviously you've got to work on your level of respect with your students, but when you've worked on the relationship, which we're going to come to later on in a later session, when you've really got that level of respect there, just a private one-to-one hand gesture or a nod, non-verbal signals can be incredibly powerful for students. Okay, let's move on. Okay, next we've got our non-verbal strategies, and as you can see, these are mainly different forms of written praise. Now, written praise is incredibly powerful, but there are different ways we can do it. Here's a few. Firstly, post-it notes. It doesn't have to be a sticky post-it note. It could be just a scrap of paper. Basically, a handwritten note where you say what they've done and why it's so good. Descriptive praise statement, but in written form, and that can be just left on the desk, or it could be stuck in their book. Moving on from there, we've actually got using the marking process as a way of praising students. And I've actually had conversations with students in their books just by putting a few really positive comments in there, and then they comment, and then you comment again. They really respond to that kind of written praise because it's very private, it's very one-to-one basis. Third, we've got letters. So moving on from handwritten notes, we could go to more formal typewritten letters. And it's really good if you've got a template already on your laptop or on your computer that you can just print off. If you can put it on school-headed notepaper for extra special praise, then that's even better. And moving on from the letter, we've got the card. The greetings card industry is such a huge business for good reason. We respond really, really positively to that kind of communication. So rather than just say well done or write down well done, why not put it in a proper formal greetings card? And you can get them really cheap in bulk, but students really respond well to that kind of thing. Now, I've mentioned their rewards, and we're not actually going to do rewards here. We're going to do that as a separate video because there's a lot to consider about rewards. Needs focused is not about bribing students with rewards and using rewards to gain compliance. We're not about that at all. There's a very specific way we're going to use rewards. It's not specifically in with praise. It's a separate session which we'll go on to shortly. And finally, we've got rewards. Now, I'm not going to cover rewards in this section here, although it is a form of praise. In needs focused, we don't rely on rewards to change behaviour. We use them in a very specific way. They're not used as bribes, as they can be in some settings where we promise them in advance of doing something. Get your work right, make sure you get to the next level, and then you'll receive a golden time or you'll receive so many merits. We don't use rewards like that. We use them in a very specific way, which we'll go into in a later session. Okay, that's it for praise. Look forward to seeing you in a moment.